So you're thinking about renting a place in Great Britain. You'd be forgiven for assuming that the whole process is pretty much the same, whether you're looking in Edinburgh or Bristol. But here's the thing. When it comes to the law, that one island is actually three very, very different worlds for renters. Let's break down exactly why.
I mean, it all feels pretty universal, doesn't it? You find a flat, you sign a contract, you pay a deposit. But the reality is, that piece of paper you sign in Glasgow gives you fundamentally different rights and a different sense of security than the one you'd sign down in Bristol. So what on earth changes the moment you cross the border?
Well, the law is very clear. You're stepping into a completely different legal world. We're talking about your rights as a tenant, what your landlord has to do for you, and maybe most importantly, how and if your tenancy can be ended. It all changes.
So, here's what we're going to cover in this explainer. We'll start with the contract itself, the actual agreement. Then we'll get into the huge topic of ending a tenancy. We'll also look at your right to privacy, the absolute must-have safety checks, and finally, we'll get to the bottom of why these systems are so different in the first place.
Okay, first up, the contract. This is the legal foundation for your entire rental, and it's right here that the first major differences really start to show.
In Scotland, your rental contract is called a Private Residential Tenancy, or a PRT. And here's the absolute game changer. By default, it has no end date. This was a massive shift back in 2017, and it was designed for one specific reason: to give tenants a whole new level of long-term security in their homes.
Now, let's see how that stacks up against England and Wales. While Scotland has that open-ended PRT, the rest of Britain typically uses what's called an assured short-hold tenancy, or AST. This usually starts with a fixed 6 or 12-month term. And that's not just a tiny detail, it shapes everything, from when your rent can go up to your general sense of stability. It's really no surprise that tenants in Scotland often prefer that rolling flexibility, while many in London's super fast-paced market actually lean towards the security of a locked-in 12-month deal.
Here's another key difference: landlord registration. You can see here that in Scotland and Wales, it's absolutely mandatory. Wales even goes a step further with its Rent Smart Wales scheme. But in England, there's no national system at all. It's a complete patchwork. A landlord might need a license in one part of London, but face zero requirements just a couple of streets over.
All right, now for the most significant and probably the most hotly debated topic: how a tenancy can actually be brought to an end. This is where the legal paths really split.
For years, the conversation in England has been dominated by something called the Section 21 notice. You've probably heard it called a no-fault eviction. It's basically a legal tool that lets a landlord end a tenancy after a fixed term is up, and critically, they don't have to give any specific reason for doing it. But, and this is a huge but, that is all about to change. Section 21 has been a part of English rental law since 1988, but after years and years of intense campaigning, it is finally on its way out. The new Renters' Rights Act will officially get rid of no-fault evictions by May 2026, which is going to fundamentally shift the balance and bring England much closer to the Scottish system.
So if you can't be evicted for no reason in Scotland, how does it actually work? Well, a landlord can't just wake up one day and decide they want their property back. Nope, they have to use one of 18 specific, legally defined grounds to end a tenancy.
So, here's what the new landscape looks like, side by side. Scotland has always required a specific reason or cause for an eviction. Soon, England will be adopting a very similar model, replacing Section 21 with an expanded Section 8 process, which is just a list of legitimate reasons, like wanting to sell the property or if there are serious rent arrears. It's also worth pointing out that any disputes go to different places, a dedicated housing tribunal in Scotland versus the more general county courts in England. Let's move on to something that every single tenant and landlord has to deal with. When is a landlord allowed to actually enter the property? This is all about balancing the landlord's need to access their property with the tenant's right to, live in peace.
So, here's the million-dollar question. Can your landlord just turn up at your door whenever they want? It's a really common worry for a lot of renters.
Well, the short answer is a big fat no. In any situation that's not a true emergency, landlords have to give you written notice. But the rules are different. In Scotland, they have to give you at least 48 hours notice, which is double the 24 hours required in England and Wales. And this is crucial. In Scotland, you have a stronger legal right to say, no, actually that time doesn't work for me. Whereas in England and Wales, the general expectation is that you should grant them access.
This is all built on a legal principle called the right to quiet enjoyment.
Now, that doesn't mean silence. It means you have the right to live in your home without being unreasonably disturbed. As you can see here, a landlord who enters without proper notice and your consent could be breaching this right. The only real exception is a true emergency, like a fire or a massive flood.
Okay, let's get practical. No matter where you are in Great Britain, there are certain safety standards that are just completely non-negotiable.
This table lays out all the safety essentials. Right across the board, you can expect an annual gas safety check and an electrical report every 5 years. That's pretty standard. But the key difference is with fire alarms. Scotland has the strictest rules, demanding interlinked alarms. That means if a fire starts in the kitchen, the alarm in the bedroom goes off too, which can literally be a lifesaver. That's a higher standard than in England, which just requires an alarm on each floor, or Wales, which specifies they have to be mains powered.
And finally, there is one area where the rules are exactly the same everywhere: deposit protection. It doesn't matter where you rent, your landlord legally must put your deposit into a government-approved scheme within 30 days, and they have to give you the official details. It's a universal protection for tenants, and any landlord who fails to do this can face some pretty serious penalties.
So, after looking at all these different rules, what's the big picture here? Why are the systems so different? Well, it really all comes down to a fundamental difference in philosophy.
You see, Scotland's modern system, with its open-ended tenancies and its for-cause evictions, clearly puts the emphasis on long-term security and stability for tenants. The traditional approach in England and Wales, with fixed terms and the old Section 21, was always designed to try and balance tenant rights with a more flexible way for landlords to get their property back. But with England now getting rid of no-fault evictions, it's pretty clear it's moving much closer to that Scottish model.
This quote from Shelter Scotland, from back when the new laws were introduced, just captures the intention perfectly. They called it a new dawn that brought unprecedented security of tenure. I mean, that language tells you everything you need to know about what they were trying to achieve with their reforms.
Which leaves us with one final question. Every law in this area is a balancing act. Is it better to lean towards maximum security for the people living in the homes or maximum flexibility for the people who own them? As England's laws continue to shift, the whole of Great Britain is grappling with this exact question. Is there a perfect system, and what does it even look like?